Fox News alert, the UFO vault just cracked open again. The fifth drop from the Department of War. 41 files, and they're juicy, like this. 2021, over the Gulf of Oman, A special ops warplane catches something on its infrared sensor. You can see it, that little white dot darting back and forth.
Juicy.
The report calls them cold orbs, 4 feet across. No one's been able to explain it since. Then over a town in the Middle East last year, a sensor catches something transiting clean across the flame. Still, no idea what it was. Here's another, this one from 2023. Central Command sensors watching the sky, and then blink and you miss it. The thing rips across the whole frame in about 3 seconds, and it's gone. Then it gets closer. That's.
Good evening, everyone. Nice to be back. I do have my decent microphone back. However, my boom mic device that holds the microphone, unfortunately, didn't survive the travel. So we've got one on back order. New boom mic on the way, not to worry. Hopefully you're all hearing me just fine. This is another UFO news update. You're watching the Gabriel Speaks podcast or listening. If you're on YouTube, please don't forget, like, subscribe. All that stuff really helps the algorithm and helps get our honest take and your honest feedback of what a lot of this UFO stuff they're trying to shovel our way means. So we did have the 5th tranche of evidence, and we're going to take a peek at some of that. We have Fox News' take here. This is a very serious matter, according to Fox News. The war in Iran, not so much serious, but this is a very serious matter. It's only been happening for 70 years. But now it's serious because we have some random videos. But so this is Fox News' take, and then we're going to take a look at something. I actually got all of the videos. You get different numbers out there. There's 15, there's 16, there's 14. There was like 9 new ones that I counted, and then they were counting like replays of the same video with like a zoom in is like a new video, and it's really not. It's the same video, it's just zoomed in, different angle or whatever. But we're going to get into that a little bit. We're going to listen to some Jack Sarfati explain to us what could be happening, what we could be seeing with these things in our sky. This took place in a friend of the show, Logan Black's live X space. We love Logan. We love the spaces he provides. So much so that Jack Sarfati felt comfortable jumping in and sharing some insight into what he thinks is going on in the skies. And then we're going to talk about UAP Gerb. Just fangs out, claws out, coming after Lue Elizondo. And then we're going to see, I guess, Lue Elizondo's response video. I haven't watched any of this. I've been too busy. So, yeah, we're going to get into quite a few things tonight. Don't forget, throw your comments in the chat. I'd love to get your feedback and thoughts on what you think all this craziness means. Because I got to tell you, you step away for a few weeks, you come back, it's the same nonsense. Different story, whatever, but it's the same nonsense, and disclosure seems to be getting farther and farther away. So let's take a look. This is the rest of the Fox News kind of quick report on the 5th tranche of videos.
One of our own ships down on the water. Watch right the corner. Something crosses right past it. Our sensor locks on and then scrambles to keep up. Still, nobody can say what it is. This isn't new. It goes back decades. The files prove it. In 1964, off Puerto Rico, a Navy pilot spots something the size of a fighter jet. His radar clocked it at 4,300 miles an hour, holding for 21 minutes. The CIA ruled out every plane we had, and nothing since comes even close. And when there's no footage, the FBI draws it straight from the people who saw it. June 2002, over Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, a service member watches the stars start blinking out. Something huge passing overhead, west to east, a perfect triangle, 500 feet across, deadly silent, steady speed, not a single light on it. The guy next to him saw it too. He turned and said, "Did you see that?" 2011, 2 more service members, another sighting. Where it happened, the government still won't say. 2023, now it's over an American backyard. A former defense employee on his porch when a silent triangle drops as low as 300 feet. No wings, no engine, no rumble. He said if it hadn't been a clear night, he never would have caught it. Gone in 4 seconds. 1963, Brazil.
Triangle ones always trip me out because if you've ever listened to the show, you know that that was my first sighting in the sky was a giant triangle at a very young age in the 90s. Had the 3 lights around it, although what I saw were 3 white lights on the outside and 1 red light in the middle. I'm, 90-something% sure that was a triangle. Could it have been 4 orbs in a formation? Of course, I'm open to that. I was young. It was a long time ago. It was up in the sky. They're moving very slowly. The turn and, the basically stopping in midair, the 90-degree turn, taking off faster than you could imagine with no sound. I guess that could be done with high-tech orbs as well. So who knows? Maybe it's triangles. Maybe it's these orbs that we're getting better shots of with the cameras and the videos these days. Maybe it's our technology. Who knows?
A metal sphere crashes down in a small town, blasting a hole 13 feet deep. Thick glass windows, big enough they figured someone was flying it. There was supposedly a body inside, a dead crewman in a heavy suit marked with symbols nobody could read. Wild enough that our embassy fired off a cable to Washington and
just some Prometheus shit. Could you imagine? A giant silver ball drops down. There's a body inside. They don't even specify whether it's alive or dead, but it's inside of a suit that's covered in symbols nobody recognizes. That is crazy. And it's in our Department of War files. What does that mean? It means a lot, my friends. It means a lot.
State and Pentagon and NASA all started chasing it for 6 days. They never found the sphere, never found a body, never found a witness. One local newspaper ran it under the headline, "The Airship That Wasn't There."
So, as promised, we have compiled together I'm pretty sure it's 9 different videos, but there's also different replays of these videos. And a little way into it, I've snipped in Jack Sarfati's thoughts on what we might be seeing in the skies, just so it's not completely boring, because there was like no audio with any of the video whatsoever, and y'all don't want to hear me talk for that long probably. So we're gonna get going here, and these are all the videos that were released from the Department of War. It's not Department of Defense anymore, Department of War.
With life. Okay, life is all over the universe. So that means there are many, many civilizations that have achieved warp drive and can get here. And they can come at different periods of time. They come back from the future, they come from the past, you know. We can travel all over space and time with this technology, all right? So we're not alone, we never have been alone. In fact, we are engineered ourselves. You know, the Garden of Eden. What was the Garden of Eden? It was, you know, these advanced intelligences or took a bunch of gorillas or monkeys and did some genetic engineering on them, and there we are. That's us. We're genetically engineered. We're artificial. So that's it. And, you know, all the stories, I mean, if you read, it's in the history. Okay, I have a friend. I have an interesting guy. I know this guy. I go to England a lot, in London, and I belong to an exclusive club in London. You know, one of these, you know, like Adam James Bond or John. In fact, John Le Carre, the guy, you know, John Le Carre, the guy writes MI6 and, you know, Angleton and all, you know, CIA and all that. You know, he just died. He was a member of this club. In the war, it was called the Spies Club, and one of the members of the club, who I won't name, he's an explorer. You know, he's like he's been all over the world. You know, back 30, 40 years ago, and like he was out in the outback and these places. It's just. And he said the one thing that he you know, he's lived among primitive tribes, okay? And he says, they don't make up things. They draw, like the artists, the artworks, they draw what they see, you know, primitive peoples. They're smart, but they, you know, are like in the outback. So he was in the Australian outback, and he came upon stuff that must have been like thousands of years old, you know, like primitive, you know, way back. And the pictures of, you know, like E.T., I mean, you know, like the Greys and the flying saucers, they're there from a couple thousand years ago in Australia. Okay, and there's also some of the cave paintings in France that somebody took me to see. So the point is that this and also if you go like to Florence in Italy, you know, Renaissance paintings, yeah, from 500 years ago. And you see pictures, you know, exactly, flying saucers and beams coming, and all that stuff. So and then if you look at the Greek gods, you know, the stories of, you know, the Greek gods. Well, they're just ETs. They're not. They're humans, but they're from the future. You know, the superior, you know, humans that are, and they're, you know, they're the Egyptian gods, all that stuff. So. And then if you look at the Upanishads or the Hindu, you know, back from India, there's all kinds of things about space wars happening thousands of years ago. So the point is, we've been visited by different, you know, many different, it's like Star Wars, okay? Oh, the other thing I could say is this. All these science fiction movies, you know, Star Trek, Star Wars, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
They're all real.
Yeah, all of those, they're all real. Yeah, they're fiction, but they're real. You know what I'm saying? In other words, the Central Intelligence Agency came to and I know Francis Ford. I know some of these people. You know, hanging out with them, but you know, Coppola and, you know, I was the model for Emmett Brown in Back from the Future. It was based on me, and this guy Kim Barafato, who worked with, was the Michael Fox character. But the point is, so all these movies have been set up to create the narrative so that when the actual, you know, ETs or whatever you want to call them, extraterrestrials, you know, Michael Masters and all that stuff, when they show up, you know, it's going to be, all right, yeah, well, we already knew about it. I mean, it's conditioning to accept. And then you have the CIA's guy, John Ramirez. I did a podcast with him not too long ago. So, you know, it says it might happen in 2027. You know, I mean, it's already been happening. That's the Tic Tac, you know, Commander Fravor, Grush, everything they're saying. So the point is, you know, we're not alone, definitely not alone. And they've been here throughout our entire history. And that's what we're living in. So, you know, getting ready for contact. Now, hopefully, we will not have a nuclear war with Russia and all this stuff. You see, the one thing I want to say is that everything in science, and I'm basically a scientist, everything in science has to be what it's called proper falsifiability. In other words, there has to be a way to prove it, to falsify it. I'm constructing a story for you guys, right? And that story is based on my experiences. It's the best way I can make sense out of everything that's happened to me, okay? But I could be mistaken, and in some parts of it, I'm sure I am mistaken. But the question is, is the fundamental storyline true or not? And we'll find out. So the point is this, that best case scenario is say that I'm correct, and we will not have a nuclear war because, the time travelers from the future, our descendants, won't let it happen. We call it like it's a time loop or something. This is time. But that could be mistaken. Or it could be like you also saw, what do you call it? The Man in the High Castle. Have you seen the Man in, that on Amazon?
Oh, yeah.
With the parallel universes, where Hitler run the World War II in a parallel universe. But what happens is that the parallel universes start fusing together. They collide. And this may actually be happening now. Have you all heard about, is it the Mandela effect?
Yep.
You know what? You know about that. Well, the point is this. Okay, right now we're very polarized, right? You have, like, on the one side, you got people who like Trump. On the other side, the people who hate Trump. And you have the guys who hate Putin and the people who like Putin. So it's almost as if there are a couple of, like, there's different alternate realities. And they're coming together, sort of like Man in the High Castle, people going from one reality to the other.
That's the thing with Jack, y'all. Like, he'll come in and drop a bomb, and it's lines up a lot with what I think, at least a portion of this is, which is us down the road, making tiny adjustments, maybe trying to fix other adjustments without causing too much of a Mandela effect. It's certainly possible, because when we look at this list here of these missing scientists, for the love of Pete, it's like something my grandpa used to say, for the love of Pete. This is crazy. I mean, this is crazy. I think there's more at this point. I think I agreed last time I did this show with Flack that we could argue Ning Lee and David Wilcock whether they were targets or not because of what they were into. But the rest of them, it's pretty well established that there is a common thread between all of them. The kind of shocking thing is, I started covering the McCasland thing as soon as it happened, and it has literally gone nowhere. I'm about to pull up a slide here that's going to show you just how many days it's been, which is a little shocking when you think about a general that was running Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Hi, April. My name is
162
my husband is
days.
missing.
Now, if you've watched my show before, you've heard this initial call with his wife, Mrs. McCasland, and this is some additional coverage of the initial investigation. I thought it was important to document, to get on the record. Again, I think things are so easy to erase off of the internet. So if I can leave one more tiny fingerprint, that's what I'm going to try and do. So this is the initial call from General McCasland's wife, and then some additional audio from the investigation that was ongoing since these officers showed up. And they sound a little overwhelmed, to be quite honest with you, and probably why he's still been gone for 162 days. And we're going to hear something in these witness statements where there's a witness that talks about a tunneling system. That's right, an underground tunneling system. Folks, why does this keep coming up? I do not know, but it does time and time again.
Okay. And it's been about 3 hours, and some indication that he must have planned not to be found. He's left his phone. He changed his clothes into I don't know what. I think he's on foot. All of our cars and bicycles are in the garage. I left for a doctor's appointment at about 11:10, and he was here at that time at the house. And I got back from that at noon, and he was gone. He turned it off and left it behind, which seems kind of deliberate because he's always got his phone. He has a smartwatch. I don't know if that's with him or not.
Has he ever done this before?
Never. Nothing even remotely like it. He's a retired Air Force Major General. He's very responsible, but he's also facing some medical issues.
Do you have any video at your home?
No.
Has he been diagnosed with any mental disorders or anything like that?
Well, we've been seeing a doc for both physical and mental in terms of anxiety, short-term memory loss, lack of sleep. The same doc I went to see today.
Does he carry any weapons on him?
Okay, now not to downplay this, okay, but I want to be real honest with the audience. It's my perception. It's what I have noticed in my own community is that the influx in anxiety since COVID has risen in us all. So I don't know, you take this man that's a genius, that's been trusted with some of the most sacred secrets within our arsenal, within our research and development. Yeah, I think a little anxiety is probably normal. And just like everyone else around that time, we were all a little anxious, weren't we? So I just don't know. It sounds like both the 911 operator and the wife are working towards like he's gone crazy. He went hiking off in the hills with his gun and to never be seen again, which is just wild in a community where there are cameras literally everywhere tied in to the local county sheriff's office. And we've showed you this before on this show, the actual program to his neighborhood there where you can plug your local camera in, and there's tons of cameras on there. And there wasn't one that saw General McCasland. Okay.
Well, not generally. He does have a gun safe, and I went to look in the gun safe to see if anything was missing, but I couldn't tell if anything was. He has quite a number of pistols and rifles. Other than saying if his brain and body keep deteriorating, he didn't want to live like that. But it seemed to me that was just a, man, I hate how this is going kind of thing, because I told him, yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Okay. We're going to send some deputies out to talk to you, see if you can search a little bit and see what's going on, okay?
Sure.
But before deputies even arrived, before the body cam rolled, his wife did something else. She went public right there on Facebook. While the search was still in its first hours, she posted a plea for help. It seems quite unlikely that he was taken to extract very dated secrets from him. And she also addressed the UFO connection, adding this, part explanation, part sarcasm. It is true that Neil had a brief association with the UFO community through Tom DeLonge, former frontman for Blink-182 and founder of the organization To the Stars. Neil worked with Tom for a bit shortly after his Air Force retirement as an unpaid, Neil's choice, consultant on military and technical scientific matters to lend verisimilitude to Tom's fiction book and media activities. Neil does not have any special knowledge about the ET bodies and debris from the Roswell crash stored at Wright Pat, though at this point, with absolutely no sign of him, maybe the best hypothesis is that aliens beamed him up to the mothership. However, no sightings of a mothership hovering above the Sandia Mountains have been reported.
Yeah, so I called in trying to get hold of everyone. I'm actually walking into his favorite coffee shop right now to see if they've seen him. So I work with Mr. McCasland on the Kirtland Partnership. He's a board member. He's a retired general with Air Force Research Lab.
Okay.
And we had dinner Thursday evening at Cervantes off of Gibson.
Okay.
At 6 o'clock with Space Force. And what I noticed, I was shocked this morning when I saw the alert, because what I noticed Thursday evening is he wasn't his usual self. He was kind of spacey and quiet. And you know, that happens with people, so I didn't put anything with it.
Right.
He left in his vehicle, and then I called this morning. I called security forces out at Kirtland just to ensure he hasn't used his card out there, and he hasn't access based, and they're going to keep monitoring that area. But from what I understand, well, let me tell you this first. So Thursday evening, he was wearing a blue and white striped collared shirt, button down.
Okay.
And he was wearing a little name tag, his KPC name tag. And so, from what I understand, is he left the house, his wife didn't take anything, was on the running trail, and he was last seen at 11 o'clock yesterday.
Right. Right. Does he carry like a security clearance or anything like that?
He has a very classified security clearance. He was the head of Air Force Research Lab. To the point, the man's names are in the UFO documents that are fixed to be released.
Okay.
He's in that in-depth, so he has a very high security clearance.
I wish we knew. I mean, the doctor has given him referrals to a neurologist, to a gastroenterologist, a psychologist, but those were just earlier this week, so.
What is causing him to go to the doctor and getting those referrals? What issues?
In addition to some physiological changes within the past 2-3 months, like his internal temperature regulation mechanism has gotten haywire. He's frozen all the time, which for a guy who loves skiing and slept on snow and a baby bag is not good.
So dementia is not a concern.
He's had anxiety. He's had burning. I guess you call it fog, short-term memory loss, certainly. He's resigned from a board he was on back in Washington because he said he just couldn't keep up with what he was doing.
Do you have any weapons that you guys keep in the home?
Yes. Brad has quite a few rifles and handguns that are in a gun stock.
Would you know if any of them were missing?
Well, I checked the gun safe. The first thing I noticed was, I had to get the key to even open it, but it was unlocked, but it was shut. But I looked inside and I couldn't tell. There's nothing obvious about what might be missing because I don't keep track of.
Is there anywhere can he know to go? Like, does he see places to like eat or go?
Well, I drove around. We have a friend about 2 miles away, and I drove to her house and knocked on the door. We have a key to her house, but the key is here.
Okay. And so, is there any like trails that he frequents? Like,
well, I drove up into Elena Gallegos. I drove around our neighborhood. his house.
You were over.
I mean, yeah, maybe he hiked up Lue, so he's going to take the tram back. But that's odd that he would have left it running his watch. I mean, you'll see it all over the house preparations. He was going to a backcountry ski hut next week with 17 friends.
Sweet. Wow.
A ski into kind of place. So there's food and gear and there's all kind of things out that he was setting aside for that. But he was worried that his physiology was going to let him down on this trip. Okay, today he was quite down and kind of clingy, which is unusual. And I had a doctor's appointment. I remember looking at my car clock, I backed out at 11:10. And I was back by around noon and he was gone.
As you walk down the trail from San Rafael Light and then go over, there's a great tunnel underneath where although they built new apartments and condos or something to the west side.
Okay.
So that's only been there probably about 3 or 4 years. To me, it just seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
But when I worked on a lot of the trails and all of this stuff, and the lights and downlighting and with the county and stuff like that.
Right.
So when we put in that tramway trail, there's also on the black asphalt pavement, there's kind of a little walk place where you can also go down kind of into the wash over here.
Okay.
And underneath that, the reason why that all the setbacks are the way they are is because there is underneath a tunnel that we made especially for a rider on a horse. Because in the olden days, that was the North Albuquerque Acres where everybody had horses.
Sure.
Up here, you just live with rattlesnakes. But over there, the horse people. So we have a huge tunnel underneath that a rider can two riders can ride kind of side by side abreast on the horse and go underneath that tunnel.
Okay.
From that far side. And it goes underneath, and this trail next to the black asphalt, there's just kind of a little walking down slope. And that's where a huge tunnel for the riders to come through on their horses. Then the middle of the trail goes up and then crosses Sims Park Road at a place where a rider can then ride on.
Another motherfucking tunnel. They're everywhere, y'all. They are everywhere. Yeah, again, if you just joined us, this is audio, at least what they've released. And I'm not gonna lie, the kind of strange edits and weird glitchy audio sounds, those are coming straight from what's been released. So I don't know, it almost sounds like some of it is AI produced. It is super strange. This is the area here. I tried to get a good shot of where he may have gone hiking to, where they say he may have gone hiking to. Who knows anymore? It's been half a year. So I don't know if we can believe anything the investigators have to say at this point. I don't think they know shit. I mean, they found an Air Force sweater a mile away that had none of his DNA on it, and they were like, this could be a clue. And I guess it could be, but I certainly wouldn't be releasing that to them. If you're pushing that out to the news, you don't have dick, period. And they have all these cameras in the area. There is some shadiness going on, especially when you connect it to these other scientists. Is it voluntary? Is it not voluntary? I don't know. But I certainly don't believe a man was so embarrassed that he might not be able to keep up with his buddies on the ski slopes that he hit himself off camera, took himself out, and got rid of himself in a way where the body could never be found. Come on. Not telling his wife of however many years. It's just, there's just no way. There's no way. It's fishy, I tell you.
into Elena Gallegos.
That's what I've been hearing from some of the
From
neighbors.
bobcats, cougars, bear,
Yeah.
everything. But the bears, I don't know if they've woken up yet, but birds, lots of. But this is not an unusual place where. Anyway, but that if he wanted to go down just a trail, the black asphalt trail, underneath that tunnel, what I've been worrying about is homeless moving in there because it's like a condo down there, probably. Are there people living under there?
I haven't been down there yet, but it's probably.
I
my
want
next
the
place
county to
check.
check it out because, I mean, there's a network we don't even know about.
Try to get the news from the cop.
I mean, that's a great protected tunnel area because because it was made for the horses and riders to go through, and the cars go over the top of that bridge over there.
Okay.
So that I would just say that's about the only little.
And it's the one right across from the new.
Well, you see where
complex
Park Road comes out, and that's a city. That's the Elena Gallegos Trail. That's a Elena Gallegos Road going up to the wilderness area.
Oh, okay.
He used to be my boss. He's a retired general, Air Force. No, I haven't seen him in forever.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I see him like once every. I haven't seen him. I thought I saw Susan, his wife, walking up the driveway a day or two ago, but I haven't seen him in McCasland.
Okay.
Oh my God.
All right.
He drives around in that little sports car, and he's got like a Range Rover, like African safari vehicle.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he was parked outside. Neil used to be my boss. My boss's boss's boss, which is hilarious. I briefed him back in 2000 when he visited Boston. So I think they had the house here, and I lived in Boston, and he came up to the air base.
Okay.
And I briefed for him
It's hilarious.
on projects I had. And he was this scary colonel. He's a PhD. I'm a PhD, but like he's a PhD in some other science, engineering. And then he ran the scientific lab, and he's like smart as hell. And and he's really straight laced, and like so he's not a. If you walk, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Unless they went for a walk and popped an aneurysm or stroked out or something, but then he'd be on.
Hopefully on the road somewhere.
Yeah, he'd be on the bike path or up the trail.
We're dealing with someone who is suicidal at this point. Like, what would make him suicidal?
So she said the neurocalls were saying he's having a very hard time with temperatures, and he has a big skiing snow trip coming up with 17 friends, and he's worried that he won't make it physically.
Okay. What about financial stuff? Do you know anything? Is there a hardship there?
No mention of it.
Dom's leading question. I don't think that's been asked yet.
Because this is my thing too. It's like I wanted to know exactly if they go on walks like out here, like if he's walking, she's heading on this trail. That's a long ways to get to that point.
Yes. Just to get to the trail.
Well, I could possibly track him with a dog, but it would have to be from like a little spot where we know that this is probably where we walk through. So if it's in the backyard and we skirt it up that way, I could track him all the way. Hutch will track. I've tracked up to a mile with him before, so he'll do it.
Yeah.
And I would probably just need, because I don't know if he's going to be crossing over roads. He's done urban stuff too. I need like a dirty pair of socks or something.
She has the clothes he was wearing earlier today.
That might work. We're going to canvass the area. If I can figure out like exactly where he had taken off from, like even like if he walked through the backyard and like kind of went up this way, would he do something like that?
Never do that.
Okay, so he'd basically stay on the streets.
He'd be leaving the property one way or another on Quill Run.
$162 days, y'all. Like not a lead, not a nothing. I think I've shown the update from the Sheriff's Department website like multiple times where they're like, yeah, we found a bag and there's some shoes that we think maybe he changed into. So with that somewhat newly released audio, I think one thing we have learned is that there were tunnels that clearly he did not want to be seen, or whoever took him did not want him to be seen. It's very it's very difficult to say. Could this be a situation where he was cooperating for one reason or another? I don't know. I really don't know. But you tag him along with all of the other folks, the scientists, and it's like this should be like a national emergency, like our top aerospace engineers are getting snatched out of their homes. It's weird. It's weird. Okay, so Gerbin, we've got UAP Gerb. He's been throwing the gauntlet down at one Lue Elizondo. So we're gonna take a look at what's happening here. I don't know what particularly happened. Apparently, Mr. Gerb thinks that Louise and all is part of the legacy program, which is, to those that have had their ear to the ground, have been thinking that for quite some time. But I guess with his audience size, for him to come out and say something like that is kind of a big deal, especially on Ross Coulthart G'day, where Lue Elizondo frequents. So we're going to watch this UAP Gerb deal on UFO, and then we're going to switch over to, apparently, Lue Elizondo had a response to this. So we're going to check that as well. Here we go. Possibly. I'm a little rusty, y'all. Here we are.
What are they doing?
Limited disclosure campaigns or protection of equities and interests. And it's so frustrating. If more people had the courage or gall, like David Grush, to be completely transparent with the information they've been exposed to, I think we'd be in a much better place right now.
Okay, but let me devil's advocate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not expressing a particular view here. It's my job to devil's advocate. If this technology is real,
mm-hmm.
it's the most valuable technology on the planet. It would be the most coveted item on the planet. It's worth serious coin.
So
we don't want this to fall into the hands of potential adversaries, the Russians, the Chinese, who probably, almost certainly, have recovered craft of their own and are attempting to do the same kind of reverse engineering. You can understand, can't you, the importance of protecting the national security elements of this retrieval program.
Right, and you don't, if we have a disclosure of, our disclosure includes success of exploiting or deriving technologies from non-human vehicles, you don't have to publish a manual on an alien reproduction vehicle exactly how they work. You don't even necessarily need to reveal them. A disclosure can include that there have been decades of attempts and possible successes and possible misses in exploiting and deriving the technologies. And that's still an honest disclosure. You don't need to do an ARV, an alien reproduction vehicle, flyover with a B2.
But see, I think this is the thing that Gerb is missing, the point that Coulthart is trying to land there, is that what if they aren't aliens? And what if it's our technology? And what if you pushing this further will uncover the fact that we've had this hidden technology, this hidden program for years and years, and it will put the U.S. in peril and blah, 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 because all the nations will learn, so on and so forth. Just like I've come to the conclusion that the Tic Tac was most likely man-made technology, which means all of this could be man-made technology. It's possible, just like we're willing to weigh the opposite, that it's extraterrestrial or that it's interdimensional. I think we also have to weigh the fact that there's been science that has been hidden from us. And science that is innovative, that breaks boundaries, looks like magic when you first see it. And then it's normalized. So what Ross was trying to say is, look, Gerb, you go digging up the wrong holes, you go exposing the wrong things, perhaps this knowledge that was maybe all human-made, wasn't reverse engineered by an alien, was just engineered off the books. You're going to cause problems. I mean, Diana Pasolka was just on Joe Rogan talking about how she was told her time would be better spent investigating the religious aspect of this and how this goes back farther than we could possibly imagine. Things to think about.
B2. We still don't need to reveal our what we think we might have as asymmetric warfare capabilities to China and Russia. There's still ways to disclose without playing our hand in this sub-Rosa Cold War.
Do you think it's possible? I know David Grush's original DOPSA referred to agreements. What do you think those agreements related to? He's never really specified what they are.
No, and gosh, that might be fun to talk about as well, because that's almost kind of out of my wheelhouse. I'm so specific on the programs.
Is it possible those agreements are with non-human intelligences? Could this be the reason why there's so much secrecy?
It could be, and I don't have any specific knowledge on this, but I hypothesize maybe if those agreements have taken place, they're also technology transfer agreements. Maybe for certain things, NHI, non-human intelligence, have gifted certain...
Because the only other explanation is that there are agreements with foreign adversaries.
Oh, I think that's quite possible. You talked about the treaties with Russia under the SALT treaties. Specifically, there are MOLINK codes, Atom 222 and 333 nuke flash codes to alert Russia if there's a UAP that's not one of our missiles in their skies and vice versa. I think there's also an argument to be made that, maybe there are some treaties with Russia. Hey, this is your territory. This is our territory. If something anomalous crashes in there, you get it, we get it, and just not to step over each other's toes so there's not kinetic strikes. There's quite possibly agreements with foreign adversaries.
And yet, as Jeff Cruikshank, the Australian intelligence person, was revealing in one of the shows that I've done with him, he talked about, I think it was Operation Palladium, where they were using fake UFO signals to trick the Russians, the Soviets, into a response. So they were actually using the very thing that JFK feared might provoke the Soviets into a nuclear war to try and find out the capabilities of their own.
Right. It's all a fucking game, which is why investigating it and trying to educate yourself on it can be so frustrating, because you don't know who to believe, what to believe, when to believe them. You really have to just trust your heart, trust your soul, trust your feelings, Luke. Okay, so Gerb essentially in this interview later calls Elizondo part of the Legacy program, along with Jim Klepfel, the old DNI guy from 9/11. I think that's his name. I could totally be wrong. I'll look that up while we switch over here. But this was Mr. Elizondo's response. So let's hear what he had to say.
Howdy, folks. Lou here. As you can tell, I'm in my pickup truck, and I'm hauling, and what you can't see is a substantially long trailer, almost 50-foot flatbed. For those of you who might not know, I have made a permanent move to the Washington, D.C. area, and I'm still in the process of collecting my things and my items, but I am there as disclosure is a full-time commitment for myself. I'd like to discuss with you a few things for these short moments. Forgive me, I am at a rest stop right now, so I'm not driving, but I do have to get back on the road. I would like to talk about the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, that everybody thinks that the president has just somehow magically waived and now we don't have an NDA anymore. It is true that the president signed a presidential directive that has not been yet made public, so we don't know exactly what's in there. And I applaud that effort. I think it's fantastic. It's a great move forward. The problem is it doesn't alleviate us from our NDAs. What it does, it alleviates us from our NDAs from discussing this conversation about UAP with none other than who? Arrow, which, as you know, I already did. Spoke several times with Arrow. And unfortunately, at the time, Sean Kirkpatrick, the former director, didn't do a whole lot of good with that. Secondly, we can also talk to Pursue, which I may already be talking to elements of Pursue. But unfortunately, it has not alleviated my ability to speak to the general public. And this is why.
Okay, so here's a problem, right? I made this list. I'm not gonna lie, I have my AI help me make this list of all of the noise in the UFO field. All right, so at the current moment, like, we think disclosure coming from some trusted source in our government is going to answer this question. Are we alone? But what if it's not really government secrecy that we're getting to? What if it's just more noise? Because now we have whistleblowers, government documents, videos, Congress, journalists, researchers, anonymous sources, of course, podcasters like me, former intelligence officials, experiencers, debunkers, believers, skeptics, doomers, and God, the list goes on and on. And so many with their different takes on what this phenomena is. And I used to hate the fact that they changed it from UFO to unknown aerial phenomena. But now I kind of understand it. Because we know from the studies done, when there's UFO activity, there is always, almost always, strange, supernatural phenomena that takes place in the area where the multiple sightings take place. So is that connected? Is it all connected? Is there just a reality around us that we're not seeing? Or an intelligence around us that we're not seeing? But with all this noise, knowing that Elizondo worked with Space Force and Richard Doty on a counterintelligence mission, I think it's safe to say that most of what we're going to hear from Elizondo, par for the course, is to just confuse the messaging.
Why it's important that the U.S. government really push hard to continue to pass legislation so folks like myself, the whistleblowers, can come forward and have that conversation, not just internally within the U.S. government, but with you specifically. And so it's important for several reasons, because really there's a lot of confusion right now that, oh, Lou, you don't have an NDA anymore. You can say whatever you want. That's not true. I am still held by my secrecy oath, and until the government gives me the ability to speak openly about it, I can only go through two channels.
There it is.
Either Arrow, which I wasn't overly impressed with the first.
Hey, do you guys know what the secret is to Lou being able to spill the secrets? It's the ability to never be prosecuted for his crimes. It's what all these guys want. Because if elements of this weren't real, and they were funding it through a black budget with no oversight from Congress, I promise you, money was being stolen by these guys that act like heroes. Am I making an accusation? No. But it's very interesting that they all want immunity now. You don't typically want immunity for telling the truth. I think we're kind of going through that with Fauci right now, aren't we? They gave him immunity before he even had to testify. So we're going to do the same thing with these jokers. We're going to give them immunity, and then they're going to tell us how they ripped us off for 60, 70, 80 years. It's not going to be pretty, folks.
First time, and neither were my colleagues, and I don't think Congress was either, or pursue. And like I said, I might already be talking to some individuals there, either directly or indirectly. The second issue was brought to my attention that there was a interview done very recently on Ross Coulthart's Reality Check show under the News Nation moniker, and they had a guest on there that spoke really some incredible outlandish claims that are 180 degrees false and they're just not factual. And so what I want to do is address that real quick. And why is that? Because in this process of disclosure, there are people out there that are trying to hijack and derail this conversation by feeding you false information. People who claim to be on the inside, who know information, they don't. And they're saying things, frankly, I can only suspect for clicks and likes. So please be careful of that. First and foremost, one of the allegations was that ATIP was a limited hangout. Well, let's not forget that in 2009, Senator Harry Reid himself, who was the chairperson for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence for the U.S. Senate, that was his program. That was his. They paid for it with U.S. taxpayer money, and he even sent a letter in 2009, a memo, official memo, to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, Lynn, at the time. So if this was a limited hangout that was being paid by U.S. government taxpayer money, then by default you're saying that the sissy itself is a limited hangout, and by extension the U.S. Congress and even the U.S. government. So that simply doesn't make sense. It's factually not correct. It's not true. Not sure where this individual's getting their information, but they're not getting it from people who actually know. Another allegation that was made during this interview was that somehow General Clapper and I had colluded with one another to try to go ahead and create this soft disclosure, and that we were going to go ahead and manage it and control it. That is 1,000% not accurate. In fact, we never had such a conversation, and Jim Clapper and I never meant to have that conversation. So again, it's factually not correct. And the problem is that you have an individual here who is sensationalizing stuff and making stuff up, quite frankly, who has ulterior motives. That's deceiving you. And furthermore, they're getting attention on a national news network that, by the way, I respect, and that's always been a friend of disclosure, and now manipulating them and providing false information to their audience to the point where they're like a tabloid. And I think this is problematic. If you want to know why I've always said I want to destroy ufology and replace it with something better, this is why.
This is why. So that I can go on shows to threaten people about suicide and try to get crazy people to act on other people. This is why. I want to be a tabloid like News Nation. When it makes somebody passionate like that, that's because they have a dog in the fight. Don't be fooled, y'all. Okay. Dylan Borland, the brave Dylan Borland, stepped forward, and we're going to show this little segment from the Jesse Michels show where he talks about his interaction with the triangle craft. And when we go through the new UFO files, you'll see this image right here. This was a FBI recreation of a triangle craft that a military individual saw. And Dylan Borland here is going to describe a very, very similar experience.
Take me back to Langley Air Force Base 2012. What exactly did you see?
Yeah, man. I mean, whenever this was weaponized, shout out Jeremy and George, we were on, so same old shit. On Panama schedule, you're on call. You're doing 12-hour shift work. When weather was down overseas, can't get into specifics, but if we can't fly planes and craft or grab satellite imagery, you send people home on split shift and you're on call. So I live on base, and I always said, like, look, man, I don't have a family. I'm living by myself on barracks. Y'all go home to your kids. At least you get a couple hours with them. So 1 o'clock in the morning rolls around. Drive across the base from Langley, past the NASA hangar, past the runway, go back to my barracks. I change, usually smoke cigarettes, maybe grab a beer, chill out, play some Borderlands or some Grand Theft Auto, whatever. Go out to the gazebo, and I was smoking a cigarette. I'm on the phone with my buddy. He was a federal officer, 1811 position, FYI. I mean, behind the scenes, this goes back years. Everybody knows all of these things in the world where I testify to, but outside smoking a cigarette on the phone, BSing, and I see a light pop up near the NASA hangar. I think we'll fill in some stuff on the weaponized interview. A lot of the redacted stuff, like I said, was protecting individual units, locations, and things I know that were tested. So I'll say it. The first redaction was about weather balloons. I have seen weather balloons be tested from that NASA hangar. I believe in national security. I love the nation. I believe in protecting the nation and protecting the people who serve and die for it. So I see this light pop up from the NASA hangar, 1:30, 2 a.m., around there. And literally, I thought it was a weather balloon. And I see it pop up, smoking a cigarette on the phone. I'm like, oh, that's wild. Clearly, at this time of night, in the middle of the week, you're testing something fun. Don't think anything of it. Begin walking up. So at night, like, you guys know me at this point. Most people know me. I have a thing where I walk, I pace. I'm like, I gotta be doing something. I've always been that way. So I see this. I start walking up the street to the main street to go walk around the track. And I had an old MP3 player. It had like 12 songs on it. In fact, one of the Nas songs was on there, my man. So I'm walking up there. I walk up to the main street, up towards the gym and the JAG office. And as I'm walking up, the light that I see popped up from the NASA hangar. And the light starts to fly to me across the base. And as it flies to me, a triangle manifests around it. To be clear, I am very, very, very adamant about what are the facts. I can't tell you if it's active camouflage. I cannot tell you if it manifested around it. I can't tell you if the light created some crazy wormhole. I can't tell. What I know is it was a white light that became a triangle, flew to me. There's some other stuff that I don't want to get into that is well known in the IC that it did while it happened. But it flew to me and stopped 100 feet in front of me, 100 feet above me. And most beautiful piece of technology I've ever seen.
Did he say what it did to me while it happened? Yikes.
Electricity, smelled like a lightning storm, shut off my cell phone red hot, which is an indicator of things within the ISR world that you know what's happening. Crazy.
And so it's 100 feet above you. Describe the color, the dimensions of this craft.
So approximately in my official Aero MFR that was classified, I described it between 100 and 150 foot equilateral triangle. There were lights on each corner. There was a center light 2 to 3 times larger in the center. It's black.
Now also make note, he said the Aero paperwork, not the non-existent OSAP paperwork.
Metallic flake paint. I'm looking at it.
Or no, I'm sorry. The non-existent ATIP paperwork, whichever one it was.
And I can see the edges. So it was flat on the bottom, 2 to 3 times center light, black metallic flake paint. I can feel the static electricity. The phone's turned off. And so like the edges are 90 degrees that come up, and then I never saw the top of it. So like from the bottom to the corners, it was 90 degrees. Who knows what the top of it looked like? But the big one was the outside pulsated, moved like a lava lamp. It had like this goldish transparent flow around it where the whole craft was, I don't want to call it moving, but it was moving. It was like take a lava lamp, put it on black metallic flake paint, and have the lava lamp flow around it. And it was just sitting there, it would pulsate. Like I could see the intensity on this gold, on this craft pulsating as it flowed around the craft. It was there for like 2-3 minutes or so. And then all of a sudden the center light flashed. That thing shot up. As I said, my opinion is commercial jet level. And then got up there. It looked like a satellite. Sat there for a minute. I finally reset my phone. And it just went right over the Atlantic Ocean.
You said you reset your phone. What happened to your phone?
So I was on the phone with my buddy, 1811 position for the government, which is a federal officer, licensed, badge carrying, gun carrying federal officer. I don't want to give.
That's a very, very close to what he said under oath. Not much new there. I know a story he's told before. To George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell in one of their extended interviews. But it's interesting to hear that, the story's not changed. We're not catching little slip-ups or lies or misspeaking or, I just happen to remember all of a sudden there was a being hanging out of it. Nothing like that. It's been consistently the same story every single time. And it sounds like he's got witnesses that are willing to testify under oath as well. So whether that, again, is our technology, he says it looked like it came from a NASA hangar. Who knows? It's really hard to say. Now we're going to jump around a little bit here because if you missed it, Diana Pasulka was just recently on Joe Rogan and tried to explain in an easy, digestible way sort of what she found Jacques Vallée has come to believe and what she is almost, it sounds like, coming to believe herself. So this is pretty interesting. If you missed it, Diana Pasulka on the Joe Rogan podcast. Here we go.
But there are events that cannot be explained, but don't merit the supernatural category. And those events by the way, there's a word for it, and they call it the preternatural. Okay, the preternatural. And this has been a category that Catholics have had since at least the medieval time period. And because they're trying to figure out, let's just talk about UFOs. If UFOs are here now, most likely they've been around for a long time. And so whatever Catholics were seeing in the medieval time period, they had categories for trying to understand it, just like we're trying to have too. And so they say, the theologians at the time said, like Thomas Aquinas, he said, okay, the preternatural, these are events that happen and they're either angelic, like, good things like that, or demonic, which are fallen angels, or other things, because God has created other things other than, he's created the unseen and the seen, some things that we can't see. So in the preternatural, there happens to be experiences that people have with things that seem to be similar to what people talk about when they're talking about being abducted by UFOs, beings that appear and disappear, beings that can seemingly read your mind. So this would be the theological category that Catholics have called the preternatural. And I think that's what J.D. Vance was trying to get at.
But why would you call that a demon?
Okay, so this is a good question. And that's where I'm going to kind of help push back on you, and then you could push back on me again. All right. So the fact is that we don't know. Okay, we don't know. So there's analogous experiences that people have. Now that I've been doing this since 2012, a long time, it is beyond a doubt that there's a pattern match between people who have these experiences and people who have demonic experiences. That's an analogy, but that doesn't prove that they're identical.
When you say pattern match, what do you mean?
Yeah, so I'm talking about what people actually experience. So when people have these experiences, what happens to them? They report things like things appearing and disappearing, luminous lights, okay, lights showing up, aerial phenomena. They also report beings that can somehow read their minds. They also report that sometimes they feel like these beings put thoughts in their minds, okay? These are all things that Catholics who know the history would say, wow, that sounds like this kind of situation. Does that mean it is that situation? There's no, we can't say that it is. And that's where your point is relevant. Your point is that how do we know that they're demons? We don't know that they're demons. But it warrants an investigation, I think, into the similarities.
Okay, but when you think about demons, most people think about evil. They think about something that does horrible things to you, possession, something that causes you to murder people, or something that wants to murder you, or something wants to steal your soul. That doesn't seem at all like what we're talking about with these UFO experiences. What it seems like is you're encountering something that has a superior intelligence, of superior technology, something that's very different, that communicates telepathically, but they don't seem to have vicious intentions. So I don't understand the distinction. I understand why you would call that a demon, unless you're just using that in this old school term, because the people that were experiencing this supposedly or assumedly, when we're talking about ancient times, and they didn't have words for it and they didn't know what they were experiencing, they would call that a demon.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a really good.
It's also interesting too. You never hear the word. Well, you don't hear the word jinn mentioned very much, but in Middle Eastern culture, the jinn has been a thing as well. It's just like the demon, the jinn. We might consider in Western culture and philosophy a jinn like a demon, something to come and basically cause a ruckus. It's a very, very interesting study.
Good comment. And this is something that I'd agree with you, like before 2016. I'd say, yeah, you're right.
What changed?
Okay, that I did a lot of research, and what I found was that, let's take an example, because examples are good. Skinwalker Ranch. So there are a lot of people who are associated with looking into UFOs who are well known.
Okay, so she goes on to say how Gary Nolan was asked to come help out at Skinwalker Ranch, but he wouldn't, of course, agree to do that because he didn't want the hitchhiker effect following him home and affecting him and his loved ones. And I think the Skinwalker Ranch, the TV show, I don't think does that phenomenon any justice. I think maybe that's a way to get people to kind of swallow the fact that, yes, there is real phenomena out there. And yes, there are many, many theories on what it is. But as far as trusting anyone with telling you they know what it is, like that's something you just got to listen to yourself on. Whether it's a jinn, whether it's a demon, whether it's an angel, whether it's a being, whether it's an interdimensional being or an extraterrestrial being or a human from the future, whatever our theory for what these others are, they're theories. It's hard to, I wouldn't trust anyone that says I know. Just because you can see a code behind lasers when you do some DMT or something, I don't think that means you know the answer to the universe. I'm sorry. Okay, so moving on to something a little more light, which I thought was kind of funny. We are now in a world where our News Nation, is seriously covering the possibility of alien bases on the moon. Check this out, y'all.
So there may be some evidence of a technologically advanced civilization that made it to the moon. Yeah. Now, before you say, Jesse, of course, man, back in 1969. No, according to some scientists out in Ukraine, this civilization is non-human. Sounds out there, right? Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to do a deep dive into this story, all things moon related, because we're going to bring you what was just come up, what we've dug up, because it's hot take time. Remember, this is where we take a closer look at a story that we cover on Jesse Weber Live. We do a deeper dive on it. We dissect it. Best part is I get to hear from all of you, your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Put them in the chat. I'll answer them. I got a great guest coming on to talk all about this, because you don't want to just hear me talk about moon bases, right? Got a former NASA administrator, current board member of the Disclosure Foundation. He's going to join us, give his take on what these scientists are finding, what the recent UFO file drops have revealed about perhaps our celestial neighbors. So let's just talk about what's going on here. Let's talk about what those scientists at Ukraine's main astronomical observatory say they found. In a new study, the scientists claim that they observed more than 20 UFOs, or UAPs, as they're also called, moving near and across the moon over the course of 2025. Scientists apparently used this high-speed camera that was attached to a telescope in the Kyiv region. And I just got to say, first of all, kind of amazing, right? These scientists are able to look to the stars even as a war rages around them. Put that to the side. That camera took 20 pictures every second. And so it allowed the scientists to track objects that would have essentially been invisible to the naked eye. And what the researchers say they found is astounding. Multiple unidentified objects moving at a high rate of speed, or not at all. That appeared to change their brightness and rotation. And because of those differences in how the objects moved, the team separated them into two categories, okay? So there's atmospheric objects. Those.
Okay. That's pretty fucking wild, right? I mean, I'm sure Mick West is going to come out and say, those are just space balloons. It's the Starlink system. But it sounds like these folks accounted for all of that.
Those appeared to be not moving, stationary, and continental ones that moved across the lunar surface. The continental ones can apparently move at just blinding speed. Researchers say they tracked one object moving at 4.1 miles a second. And just for reference, if your flight from New York to LA moved at that speed, that fast, you would get to your destination in just under 10 minutes. Barely enough time for the in-flight movie, the questionable chicken dish. But the scientists also say that they're able to use light to measure the size of the object. So there was one object allegedly measured 1,440 feet long, which is just a hair shorter than the Empire State Building, okay? And if you think that's big, the scientists say they also tracked two other UFOs, one measuring 16 miles across, the other a whopping 25 miles, which is larger than the island of Manhattan. Now, the scientists admit they don't know.
That is so crazy. It makes me think of, who is it? Clifford Stone, the gentleman that talked about his findings when he went to work for NASA and this crazy shit that was on the side of the moon. Makes me think of the Men That Stare at Goats guy, McGonagall, who said there was a civilization on the moon years ago and on Mars years ago. Fascinating stuff. The moon is a weird place, my friends. Oh my goodness. So some of these files here, we'll get into this just a little bit, but if you look at the 5th tranche of records, let me get this up here. So the 5th tranche of records, and I always feel like the good ones are the FBI ones. So this is the one I got the picture from, the Airborne Triangle. Artistic interpretation of a reported incident above Bagram Air Force Base, Afghanistan, which I don't believe is where Dylan Borland was. I believe this was somewhere else. In June 2002, images based upon a first-hand description provided by a former military service member, as described in FBI UAP D024, the Federal Bureau of Investigation prepared this digital rendering as a visual aid in 2026 in support of the Pursue initiative. All right, well, somebody with their AI, there's your key term right there, the Pursue initiative with the FBI. What was going on with that? This is another one. I guess this is it up here. This is a little triangle there. This is in Colorado Springs, Colorado, involving unidentified anomalous phenomena in October of 23. Images based on a first-hand description provided by a former Department of War employee, as described in the names the FBI file, so on and so forth. Some more digital renderings. Wow. That is pretty unbelievable. That looks very similar to what I saw, except there was a red guy right in the middle here. It's 2011, July 2011. And, you know, what's kind of shocking is these are FBI files from 2011. Image and artistic interpretation of a reported incident potentially involving unidentified anomalous phenomena near Colorado Springs, Colorado. So, this would be the triangle craft here. And you see it's not much higher than a light post. So I imagine not moving very fast. And so we've just got tons and tons of these triangle reports. This is an artistic interpretation of a reported incident potentially involving unidentified anomalous phenomena in the western United States in 2026. Wow. So you see there's just here's the actual report we can get into. Very, very interesting stuff. So, do yourself a favor. Let me get the main link up for you here. This is where you want to go. I'm going to put this in the chat for you bums. Don't forget, Ronnie says only the dielectric vortex technology has the fastest rate of induction, delivering superior levitation for your personal spacecraft. Don't forget, folks. Okay, that's the link. It should take you there. I don't know. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that should take you to the 5th release. All right. So I think that covers all the topics I wanted to cover tonight. Again, we're in a situation where we have these kind of warring factions building up against each other in the UFO community, and it just never ends. I mean, it's been going on for so long. Divide and conquer, y'all. Just remember that. That is that's the playbook. That's how they keep progress from moving forward. So, love y'all. Tell the ones you love how much you love them. Don't forget, hold them real tight. And everyone have a great, blessed night. See you next time.